In the 1800s, there's this strange affliction spreading across the American Great Plains and the Canadian prairies, and it's only affecting settler families. These settlers are going mad with prairie-madness or prairie fever. They were sad, they were withdrawn, isolated, angry, even violent. In the United States, many of these families moved from east to west thanks to the Homestead Acts, which granted these families lands that they were supposed to work on to cultivate. In a matter of months to short years, their personalities dramatically changed. Why? Basically, we don't really know. We can only guess at this, but one theory is that people were isolated. They were extremely homesick after moving thousands of kilometers, miles away from their families. You find yourself in this new area where there are miles of land between you and your next neighbor, let alone a settlement. The prairies themselves are a new environment. They look different. They sound different. It's possible that some people were hypersensitive to certain sounds, like the wind, so this might have actually made them feel worse. This is before we even start talking about financial stressors, nutritional deficiencies. I mean, when you put all of these things together, you can start to understand why someone's behavior might have changed. Most of the evidence for prairie madness actually comes from literature as well as personal memoirs, less so from clinical evidence. But it is not the first or the last time that doctors and politicians have tried to argue how the geography, the climate can affect mental health. One illness that actually caused a significant bit of panic in the mid-19th century was that of tropical neurasthenia or oriental nerves, which affected white colonists in Africa and Asia. People at one point considered it to be a greater threat to the empire than malaria or cholera. Neurasthenia generally was kind of invented in the 19th century as a way to capture the nervousness that was supposedly a response to modernity, to industrialization, to telegraphs, to trains. The symptoms of neurasthenia could really be anything: fatigue, headache, sadness, stomach aches. What was unique to tropical neurasthenia was the climate, the sun. It sapped away people's vital energies, made them sad, made them listless. What was interesting about tropical neurasthenia was that it was more about distance from whatever positions and politicians termed as civilization, as modernity, rather than proximity to these phenomena. So the treatment was to return to civilization either through repatriation or engagement in hobbies like literature and theater that were condoned by these authorities. Much like in Prairie Madness, it was the settlers that fell in, not the local indigenous populations. Madness was defined based on your nationality and your race. Of course, it depended on the perspective of the person diagnosing you. Tropical neurasthenia was supposedly a less stigmatizing diagnosis than other forms of madness and helped avoid admission to the colonial asylum. And so you can see how ideas about racial hierarchy, superiority are framed within this diagnosis. Ultimately, in both tropical neurasthenia as well as prairie madness, it was about people's inabilities to acclimatize to their new environments. Also fascinating about these diagnoses is how they were bound to, defined by their social and cultural contexts.